Welcome to another edition of Beards Without Borders. This is the Halloween edition. I am dressed up like Ebenezer Scrooge. Tonight, I'm excited because I'm going to be reading you a story by Edgar Allen Poe, which is appropriate for Halloween night. Smoking a 104-year-old Dunhill pipe with a gold band. 104 years old. 150-year-old pipe tamper. Candlelight. Very, very Ebenezer Scrooge. And reading the story by candlelight. So sit back and listen. This is by Edgar Allan Poe. It's called The Oval Portrait. The chateau in which my valet had ventured to make forcible entrance, rather than permit me in my desperately wounded condition to pass a night in the open air, was one of those piles of commingled gloom and grandeur which have so long frowned among the Apennines, not less in fact than in fancy, of Mrs. Radcliffe. To all appearance it had been temporarily and very lately abandoned. We established ourselves in one of the smallest and least sumptuously furnished apartments. It lay in a remote turret of the building. In decorations, they were rich, yet tattered and antique. Its walls were hung with tapestry and bedecked with manifold and multiform armorial trophies, together with an unusually great number of very spirited modern paintings in frames of rich golden arabesque. In these paintings, which depended from the walls not only in their main surfaces, but in very many nooks which the bizarre architecture of the chateau rendered necessary, in these paintings my incipient delirium, perhaps, had caused me to take deep interest, so that I bade Pedro to close the heavy shutters of the room, since it was already night, to light the tongues of a tall candelabrum which stood by the head of my bed, and to throw open far and wide the fringed curtains of black velvet which enveloped the bed itself. Oh, that sounds good, doesn't it? I wished all this done that I might resign myself, if not to sleep, at least alternately to the contemplation of these pictures and the perusal of a small volume which had been found upon the pillow, and which purported to criticize and describe them. Long, long I read, and devoutly, devoutly I gazed. Rapidly and gloriously the hours flew by, and the deep midnight came. The position of the candelabra displeased me, and outstretching my hand with difficulty rather than disturb my slumbering valet, I placed it so as to throw its rays more fully upon the book. But the action produced an effect altogether anticipated. The rays of the numerous candles, for there were many, now fell within a niche of the room, which had hitherto been thrown into a deep shade by one of the bedposts. I thus saw in vivid light a picture all unnoticed before. It was the portrait of a young girl just ripening into womanhood. I glanced at the painting hurriedly, then I closed my eyes. Why I did this was not at first apparent even to my own perception, but while my lids remained thus shut, I ran over in my mind my reason for so shutting them. It was an impulsive movement to gain for thought, to make sure that my vision had not deceived me, to calm and subdue my fancy for a more sober and a more certain gaze. In a very few moments I gained very fixedly at the painting. That I now saw aright I could not and would not doubt, for the first flashing of the candles upon that canvas had seemed to dissipate the dreamy stupor which was stealing over my senses, and to startle me at once into waking life. The portrait, I have already said, was that of a young girl. It was a mere head and shoulders, done in what technically was termed a vignette manner, much in the style of the favorite heads of Sully. The arms and bosom and even the ends of the radiant hair melted imperceptibly into the vague yet deep shadow which formed the background of the whole. The frame was oval, richly gilded, and filigreed in Moresque. As a thing of art, nothing could be more admirable than the painting itself, but it could have been neither the execution of the work nor the immortal beauty of the countenance which had so suddenly and had so vehemently moved me. Least of all could it have been that my fancy, shaken from its half-slumber, had mistaken the head for that of a living person. I saw at once the peculiarities of the design, of the vignetting, and of the frame, must have instantly dispelled such an idea, must have prevented even in its momentary entertainment. Thinking earnestly upon these points, I remained for an hour perhaps, half sitting, half reclining, with my vision riveted upon the portrait. At length, satisfied with the true secret of its effect, I fell back within the bed. I had found the spell of the picture in an absolute life-likeness of expression, which at first startling, finally confounded, subdued, and appalled me. With deep and reverent awe, I replaced the candelabra in its former position. The cause of my deep agitation being thus shut from view, I sought eagerly the volume which discussed the paintings and their histories. Turning to the number which designated the oval portrait, I there read the vague and quaint words which followed. She was a maiden of rarest beauty, and not more lovely than full of glee. And evil was the hour when she saw, and loved, and wedded the painter. He passionate, studious, austere, and having already a bride in his art, she a maiden of rarest beauty, and not more lovely than full of glee, all light and smiles, and frolicsome as the young fawn, loving and cherishing all things, hating only the art which was her rival, dreading only the palette and brushes and other untoward instruments which depraved her of the countenance of her lover. It was thus a terrible thing for this lady to hear the painter speak of his desire to portray even his young bride. But she was humble and obedient, and sat meekly for weeks in the dark, high turret chamber where the light dripped upon the pale canvas only from overhead. But he, the painter, took glory in his work, which went on from hour to hour and day to day. And he was passionate and wild and moody, a man who became lost in his reveries, so that he could not see the light which fell so ghastly in that lone turret, withered the health and spirits of his bride, who pined visibly to all but him. Yet she smiled on and still on, uncomplainingly, because she saw that the painter, who had high renown, took a fervid and burning pleasure in his task, and wrought day and night to depict her who so loved him, yet who grew daily more dispirited and weak. And in sooth, some who beheld the portrait spoke of its resemblance in low words, as of a mighty marvel, and a proof not less of the power of the painter than of his deep love for her, whom he depicted so surpassingly well. But at length, as the labor drew nearer to its conclusion, there were admitted none into the turret, for the painter had grown wild with the ardor of his work, and turned his eyes from the canvas rarely, even to regard the countenance of his wife. And he would not see that the tints which he spread upon the canvas were drawn from the cheeks of her who sat beside him, and when many weeks had passed, but little remained to do, Save one brush upon the mouth, and one tint upon the eye, the spirit of the lady again flickered up as the flame within the socket of the lamp. And then the brush was given, and then the tint was placed, and for one moment the painter stood entranced before the work which he had wrought, but in the next, while he yet gazed, he grew tremulous and very pallid and aghast, and crying with a loud voice, "This is indeed life itself," turned suddenly to regard his beloved, for she was dead. Edgar Allan Poe. Some say he was crazy. Do you like horror? Do you like scary things? Do you like scary movies? What is your favorite horror film? Do you like old school? Do you like monsters? Do you like evil? Do you like slasher? Do you like Rob Zombie? House of a Thousand Corpses? Devil's Rejects? What do you like? The Exorcist, The Babadook, Oculus. Puffing on this Dunhill, 104 years old. What I love about an old pipe, I love new pipes, I love all pipes, but 104 years old. Can you imagine what was going through the minds of the people that may have smoked this for over a century? This was manufactured in Ireland. (1912). It went through 2 world wars, conflicts in Europe, throughout Asia, the Middle East. Whose pocket was this in? Who did it comfort at the end of a hard day? Who fired this up? Who valued this? Who kept it clean and in good condition? Halloween 2016. Beards Without Borders. It's been a while since our last one. Is there any more peace in the world? Who's your favorite horror or mystery writer? Are you an Edgar Allen Poe fan? A Stephen King fan? Do you like comics, graphic novels and comics? Are you a fan of Walking Dead? Are you a fan of Neil Gaiman? I was so into Sandman. Sandman comics were, wow, I could escape. I could go away. I remember once I went camping, strung up a hammock in between two trees, and brought a stack of Sandman comics, and I read them all weekend. I said nothing. The whole weekend, from Friday night till Monday morning. I went hiking during the day. In the afternoons, I read, took a nap, read nothing but comic books. I like my comic books. I went without talking from Friday night to Monday morning. Have you ever done that? It has kind of a transformative effect. If you've never done that, try it. It's really hard to do. But being a person who likes solitude, I like people. I like action, but I go to where the action is. When I'm done with the action, I go back to peace and quiet and solitude. Bought some new tobaccos today. Absolute classics. This British one called St. Bruno, I had heard about it for years, and then they stopped making it. Now it's back in production again. I can't wait to fire this up. Old school classic. Way old school. Connoisseur's Choice by Peterson, which is what is in the Dunhill pipe right now. And then GLP's Union Square. Union Square is a Virginia that I can't wait to fire up. They say it's one of the purest, best tasting ones that's out there. You want to see what it looks like? The smell it's heavenly. It almost smells, it's fermenting. It's like sour. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see. Can you see that? It's flakes. It's flakes. Can you see that? Like that, and you break it up and let it dry out a little bit. Put that in the pipe. Oh, heavenly. Now what I'll do is I'll transfer this into a jar. And I'll take out what I want. But the jar, it will age. It'll ferment. The sugars will come out. I buy these jars here. These kind of jars. These are incredible. I'm going to do a whole pipe series and a tobacco series for you pipe smokers and those that are interested in pipes. I want to thank Roman for his information. I was so behind, and I had a million questions about vaping. I had a million questions about herbal vaporizing and all of that stuff. And Roman, who on Instagram his handle is @SasquatchDabs, really helped me out. Had a great conversation with him about medical use. Just an incredible guy. Can't wait to partake in with some of the newer equipment. Got a couple basket pipes today. At my little store, this is an apple. This is called an apple right here. You can't really see the grain on this, but the grain got me. And I get these like cheaper than you can imagine. I get them so super cheap. Never been smoked. It's from the 70s. It's a leftover that was found in a vault. And I have a guy that sells these to me at a very, very low rate. It's just an incredible feel in the hand. I'm not kidding you. I mean, a lot of times you choose a pipe by how it feels in your hand. As an apple, it's round. There's no edges. And can you see the grain? Oh, there you go. Maybe you can. Can you see that a little bit? It's stunning. It's a stunning grain. And it's a smaller pipe. I like it a lot. And then I have a natural briar. This is unstained. Look at that. That's a beauty. Look at that. Never smoked. This one's from the 60s. A saddle bit. I forget what this kind of shank is called. It's just like the bowl and the shank are all one. A lot of times shanks go up to here, and then there's like a long stem. But these are vulcanite, which is just hardened rubber, these bits. And I always put beeswax on them, so they go in and out in case I have to clean them. They go in and out easily. But this bit, look at this. See how that's made? Straighten that out. See that? Watch. Isn't that beautiful? I think that is just such a magnificent pipe. Never been smoked. It's about 50 years old. Isn't that nice? I like old things. That's about 40 years old. Never been smoked. Brand new. And of course, the Dunhill, which I've had for many years. 110 years old with a gold band on it. 104 years old. So if your pipe starts to feel like it's getting too hard, like the draw, you always have your little pipe cleaners. I poke it a little bit with the pipe cleaner to clean out the space a little bit. There we go. Nice. I'm out here looking like Ebenezer Scrooge in a robe and a nightcap, flannel. My roommate already thinks I'm weird. I know the neighbors think I'm weird. But I'm trustworthy and loyal and protective. I know my kids think I'm weird but cool. What a nice night. It's getting chilly again. Do you like Edgar Allen Poe? I can read some more another time. I was thinking of doing The Raven tonight for Halloween. Everybody knows The Cask of Amontillado. Everybody knows The Telltale Heart. Incredible horror. Incredible. Scary. Well written. Look him up. He's freaky, man. Edgar Allen Poe. Look at his life, man. Whew. That dude was a trip. And in Philadelphia, there's an Edgar Allan Poe house. someone leaves a rose and a bottle of whiskey on his grave every year. It's been happening since he died. Look him up, Edgar Allan Poe. You know who else I like is James Barrie, the guy who wrote Peter Pan. Take a look at the stuff that he wrote. The man is amazing. There was a movie in which what's his name? Played James Barrie. Johnny Depp. Such an incredible film. I forget what it was called. But James Barrie wrote a book called My Lady Nicotine. For you pipe smokers, you have to read My Lady Nicotine. It goes back. It's over 100 years. You have to read it. You must read it. It is such a fun, interesting read. How's this? For those of you that are into vaping and herbal vaping and dab and shatter and wax and weed and old school rollers and puffers and bong rippers and wood pipers, and go back and read My Lady Nicotine. You're going to relate to so many things in that. It'll blow your mind. Well, thank you for hanging with me another episode, the Halloween episode of Beards Without Borders. I need to toast you, of course. That's our tradition here. Glass of Cabernet. So good. Hey, what could be better? A pipe, a glass of Cabernet, oil lantern, reading a horror story, a scary story by candlelight in the Van Gogh room. Tonight I dedicate this to all fans of goth, darkness, horror, suspense. I didn't toast you, did I? I was too busy drinking. To you, my horror friends, Halloween. Happy Halloween. Thanks for watching. And as always, peace be with you.